Hi, folks. The fun stuff really begins now as we start to finally add some colors and some imagery to our wireframes. So first and foremost, just to reiterate, as it's noted in the brief, please be sure to duplicate your wireframe to put your or to create your comps. Do not delete or lose that original wireframe because you always will need it to go back on. If you happen to accidentally shift something, you can always go back and snag from that original client approved one, for instance. The next phase of things is to create that branding. So again, don't spend too much time, hurting yourself on, going through a whole branding process. Have a little bit of fun with it. Have some fun with fonts. I don't want it to just be in Helvetica saying hola tacos or hola right there. Have a bit of fun, add a little graphic. So jumping in now, so here's where I'll start. So I have my vector graphic. I'm going to Command C, and I'm going to, this was my resave here. I'm going to go ahead and Command V that in there. So if that's my logo, you might have already developed a color palette, or maybe you're going to build your website color palette based off of the brand. I kind of did them hand in hand, which I actually had developed here. So I'll just grab that. So I'm just going to develop that color palette array. As always, not too many colors. You don't want to go crazy. You don't want to confuse your viewer or make it look a bit too wild. Clean and tidy is best. So I'm going to start by just deleting the colors I originally had in our style, and then I'm just going to go ahead and highlight those and add that plus sign. So there we go. They're all now in there and they're all saved and safe. And just as you did, you guys are now experts. You just start adding your color. So you can, in fact, ungroup things. I never like to really, once I've kind of done that prototyping, I don't really like to ungroup things too much. I always get a little fearful that things are going to change in the prototyping phase of things now that they're ungrouped. So I always like to try to keep things fairly consistent. So, or like as they were in the grouped form. So you can double click to access. So these were grouped. If I want to just change the color of this one, I just double click. So just keeping those numbers the same. Double click and select. Same thing. And my border. So have some fun with this, folks. You know, you can tell I popped a pretty bright color in there to have fun with. So now what I'm going to show you. So, oh, I do want to note that with the vectors, once you did pop the vectors in there, you can in fact edit them. So I will actually go over that in a brief moment. Say we want to now add an image. So I have this box here that was placeholder for an image. So you could do it a couple ways. So I can actually go over into where I have that image, and I'm going to go ahead and literally just drag it in. Once I see that that box is highlighted, I let go, and there's my picture. I can now go ahead and change the size of this. It does scale your image with it, which is good. And it does keep the proportions together, which is extra good. If you want to change where that image is, if you double click, or if I want to actually change the size of that image, if you double click, that's where you can access the actual image to manipulate. So let's take this. Again, keeping things close to the sizing it was before, just because, again, it's always client approved. So that's pretty close. I'm not going too far. It's a bit larger, but I don't really mind that. So what I did want to talk about is where I was mentioning about the vectors if you need to manipulate. So instead of going into Illustrator, changing something in there, and then having to repaste it back into here, you can actually, in fact, adjust those. So if I want to say make just that line white so it stands out a bit more, just like with the grouping, if you double click, you can now access all these little elements. So if I double click, maybe I want to make that line white, and that one's done now. So again, having some fun with your colors, going a little bit crazy. So that's one way you can get that picture in there. Another way you can do it is literally just dragging it right in there. And now you have that full large image, and I can scale it down. Okay. So a couple ways. I do prefer obviously plopping it right into those boxes because that's exactly where they were placed. Again, according to your client, always keeping your client in mind where they kind of approved it. It just kind of helps things stay in the exact same spot. So now we just start again. We just keep pasting in. So from Illustrator, I do have some extra graphics here. So I'm just going to Command C, copy and paste instead of an actual image or a photo, I should say. I'm putting this vector in there. Command C, again, Command V. This is potentially maybe a little bit different from what the client might have approved, as they were probably thinking that was going to be an actual image. So we'll just kind of hold our breath and see how that one goes. So things like that I'd say is okay. But the rest we want to generally keep it quite consistent. Another thing I did really want to note while you're doing your comps is ensuring when you're doing your adjusting the color and say your sticky nav is going to stay there on every page. Please, please, please ensure that you are changing things on every single page. So making sure, or on every single artboard, and they're consistent. So you don't want things to jump around or colors to change. Consistency is key. So from there, again, we're not touching too much. We can go straight to our prototyping. We did that prototyping portion already. So this comping phase is a kind of fun, pretty simple, and pretty easy stage. Just show you one more little, this doesn't really matter, but just for fun, I kind of created this little polka dot background. Back to our design. Again, that's the best part, is that we can go back and forth between those two tabs of design and prototyping. It just makes your life so much easier. So a little bit of a confetti background. Like I said, this stage should be the fun stage of things after you guys have put all that hard work in. So add some fun colors, add some cool graphics. You know, maybe you do a couple iterations. I'm having a tough time grabbing this little bugger. Maybe you know, oh, let's try this color palette. Oh, I don't really like how that's working. Let's try this color palette. So like I said, have some fun, and I can't wait to see them all in their working state.